It is not a livable building because there is no heat in the building. You're not going to live someplace that does not have a fireplace. That doesn't exist when the house is built. And it's 2 stories. Over here, you see a cut going up into the beams. That is where the ladder is to go to the 2nd floor. You can see the wall used to be there, and that's an original beam because that's where the wall was. And you can see how things are constructed because you make the beam that's going to come down with a big piece that slits into there. And they drill a hole all the way through, and they take wooden pegs and they bang them in, and that's what holds the beam in to the floor. And then you build your wall on it. So we have a wall from here and a wall from there, and it's a nice storage building. The property gets sold to another gentleman, and the storage building gets sold, and this other gentleman decides he would like to make it livable. So he takes the wall out of here, and he moves it to there. And when you look up at the top right, when we go through there, you're going to see more slots, just like this. And he puts in the fireplace. All opened up, still has the ladder coming down like this. And that is how Job Sammis buys the house for his family to live in. It's a 1 fireplace house, which is not common. Usually you have 2 fireplaces. Job only has 1 fireplace. So that is where you cook. That is where you heat the house. This is the central part of the house. And we've got the business going on. He's weaving. So now we've got the 10 children. We have Job and his wife. Now, they're not the youngest one in 1775, and that's we're standing here today in 1775. The youngest one in 1775 is 6 years old. So obviously 6 years ago, in 1769, there was only 9 children. 2 girls have moved out. They have gotten married. The oldest in the house right now is Nathaniel, who's 18. And we've got a bedroom with 1 double bed. So where do the children sleep? Where do the children sleep? Some sleep here. Look at that. You could be one of the lucky children. You could fit 3 children in that bed, small children in that bed. You could fit 2 larger children in that bed. Where else are the children going to sleep? Chances are the children are sleeping on pallets on the floor. Now, what does that mean? A pallet is a mattress, a pretty nice mattress, and a pillow, and you lay out the mattress on the floor, and you sleep on the floor. It was custom in 18th century that you don't really sleep flat, and a pillow is not called a pillow, it's called a bolster, because what it does is it bolsters you up, and you're going to sleep semi-inclined, because they believe it's good for the digestion, and it's good for your lungs. You're not going to be flat and have all that congestion in your lungs. So you could prop a couple of kids around the walls, and they can go upstairs and they put their pallets up there. They're not unhappy. This is how everybody lives. This is not something that they are going to be upset about or jealous of anybody about, unless they go to somebody who's rather wealthy and they go to someone in the gentry's home, and then that's the highest class there is. And then they'll see, nice, wonderful beds for everybody. But these children, they're not unhappy, and they're not missing anything. What's it going to do, though, during the day? Now, there are no schools, so Mama is going to teach the girls, and Papa is going to teach the boys. The boys, if they would like to learn the weaving trade, the boys are going to learn from Job how to become a weaver. The girls are not going to be taught a trade, but the girls are going to be helping during the day. They're going to be helping in the business. Everybody helps in the business. So if things need to be spun, if things need to be, if yarn needs to be put together, if warp needs to be measured out for the loom, everybody in the family is going to be working on it. While we're here, Mama is going to be overseeing the cooking, or she's going to be doing the cooking. Now we know Job does own slaves, and we don't know how many. We know of at least 3. We know of a name. We've seen name of a woman. We've seen name of 2 men, because they were all involved in signing witness to a business transaction that Job undertook to buy more property, to buy land. And you teach your slaves to read, you teach your slaves to write. This is not the 19th century. Things change dramatically into the 19th century. You don't abuse your slaves. You make sure they're well educated, because you need them to be educated to do what they need to do for you. So we know that Job is buying land, and the contract is there to buy land. It's called a land indenture, and there's signatures at the bottom, and they're identified as slaves of Job Sammis as witnesses. So either Ma's lady of the house is going to be doing the cooking, or she'd have a servant that's going to cook, is going to be doing the cooking, and they're cooking over here. Now, they cook on a fireplace in the 18th century or any time. What you're going to do is you're going to build your fire in here with logs. You're going to get them burning in the morning, and you get them really hot, and you let them start to burn down, because you do not want flaming logs. You want burning charcoal. And you're not going to go out and buy charcoal, although there are places that will burn charcoal for you, but you're not going to do that. You've got plenty of wood around. You cut down a tree, you let it dry, and you make your own firewood. Burn the firewood down to glowing ember charcoal. Take your shovel. There's your shovel. Scoop out some of the charcoal from under the logs. Bring it out here. Put it down. Take a trivet. This is a really big one. This one's set up for a pot with a handle on it. Put the trivet on top of the burning charcoal, and now you have your burner. No different than your burner on the stove. The only thing missing is the dial to make it hotter or colder. So now how do we know how hot the stove is? We need, recipe says, in the 18th century, a recipe is called a receipt. The receipt says cook at a medium heat for 20 minutes. We need to know what a medium heat is. So when you are 5, do you have anybody 5 and older? Not yet 5? Okay, well, see, at 5 years old, Mama starts to teach you all the things you need to learn about keeping your house. And one of the things she's going to do is teach you how to cook. So, as you're learning how to cook, you need to know how hot is this pot. So, when you live with fire all of your life in the room, you know how to respect it, and you know how not to get burned. Okay, so you're not, unless you fell into the fire, or unless you, for some reason, got more close than you were supposed to get, you would never be hurt by the fire. Okay? You are going to come over to the pot, and you're going to take your hand. You're not going to touch the pot, but your mama has taught you that if you put your hand about 6 inches away from the pot, and you start to count, and you'll be taught right away how to count to 10. And if you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, my hand's getting too hot. Take it away. 5, it's medium heat. If you put your hand here and you count all the way to 10, too cold. You've got to put more coals under to get it hotter. If you count to 8 and you needed it at 5, you take some of the coals out. If you got here and you count 1, oh, gotta get my hand away from that. That's the hottest. That's the hot pot, hottest pot you can get. And some things say use the highest heat. Just like the recipes to say, turn it up, turn it down. You don't have a turner-upper. You get your hand to hold it, and you find out. And that's how you know how hot your pot is. What are they cooking? They could be cooking anything you can grow or anything you can buy at the market. And a couple of mornings a week, there's going to be a market out there on the village green, and farmers are going to come with things to sell. Butchers are going to come and sell meat. You want to get to the market early. You want to get to the market so that you can get the freshest things and your choice of everything that's there, because around 4 o'clock or so, it's all going to be gone. So you want to make sure you get there early. And when you're doing this, you want the nicest things that you can pick, so you want to be the first one to pick through. But everybody wants to be the first one to pick through, so it's very crowded out there early in the morning. Some people say, I went to the market and I got this meat and it made me sick. And they'll say to them, well, when did you go to the market? They'll say, well, 4 o'clock, almost, it was closing. Well, that's been sitting out in the sun all day. No wonder it made you sick. So you get everything you can get. You bring it back. There's no refrigerators. If you need to keep things really cold in the winter, some houses will have an ice house. An ice house is just a hole dug in the ground, and you get some ice from a lake or a pond, and you cut it up, and you put it there, and you bury it, and then you need some ice. You just go underneath and get a piece and bring it in. But in the summer, it's all going to melt anyway. So what are you going to do? You start to buy meats that are smoked. Smoked meats last a long time. They won't go bad. And there's a special place, it's called a smokehouse, where they build a fire and they put the meats and hang them from the ceiling, and the meats all get smoke on them, and after about 2 or 3 weeks, that smoke is so deep into the meat won't go bad. And how do you eat it? They also put salt on it. You soak it, and you get all the smoke and all the salt out, and now you have fresh meat again. So, this is where they're doing the cooking. Job has a room back here. Now, it's not going to be easy for everybody to fit. So let's just see how many we can get into the back room. This is Job's work preparation area. After we teach here, we're going to see Mama's work preparation area. But this is where Job prepares all the things for his weaving. We've got all kinds of neat things here. When you weave on the loom, you have to have yarn and thread to weave with. And Job is going to have his children spinning thread and yarn. Now, the little girls are going to know what spinning wheels are, because all the stories talk about spinning wheels, right? Cinderella and there is supposed to be a big strap that goes, or actually a string, that goes around this big wheel and then goes around this little wheel over here. Okay? And this is what you call a walking wheel. So when I go like this and turn this, what happens is this is going to spin. So I'm going to go and I'm going to turn it fast. I'm going to let it turn. And as I'm doing that, I'm taking some wool. This is wool coming off a sheet. And I'm getting it caught on this little spindle over here. Okay. Sleeping Beauty, put your finger on the spindle of the spinning wheel. Well, this sometimes gets a little sharp. It's not like a needle, but it sometimes gets a little sharp. And as this turns, it twists this yarn. It twists this wool. Now, if I have this wool and I go like this, I can pull it apart. What good is that? Well, watch what happens. If I take this yarn, this wool, and I start twisting it, and I twist it a lot, and this machine, this is really a machine, it's going to twist it a lot. It's just you have to make the machine work. There's no motor. So there you go. Now, I can't pull it apart anymore. I'm pulling as hard as I can. I can't pull that apart. Now, but what happens if I let go? It comes apart. So when you're spinning, after you've spun all of the yarn, like this, you take it off of there, and you soak it in water. Just plain water. And then when you let it dry, it doesn't come apart anymore. It stays. So that's what's on all of these spools. Spun yarn. And they dye it different colors. They go outside and they get a pot and they put all kinds of different color leaves in and vegetables in. If you wanted green, you might get green leaves off the tree. If you want blue, you're going to find a plant that's blue. If you want red, you might use beets. If you have a lot of money and you're dyeing, you might buy something called cochineal. Cochineal is the best red dye you can get. Do you know what cochineal is? Little bugs, little beetle bugs that have red shells on the back of the little bug. And that's the red comes out and makes the dye. Used to be, not so long ago, do you know what? Did you ever get a red M&M? Not anymore, but it used to be that the red M&M was dyed with cochineal. You couldn't taste it. It was good. So this is a walking wheel. That's how you get this one. This is a different kind of spinning wheel. This is either called a flax wheel or just a pedal spinning wheel. And in this one, you don't have to walk. You sit and you push the pedal down on the bottom, and there's where it spins. This is a light to put candles in, but as the candles burn lower and lower, you don't have nice tall candles anymore. You don't have good light coming up near the ceiling. But this moves, so this can go up and down, so you can get the light closer to you or closer to the ceiling to reflect more light. Now, the best thing in the room are these over here. See this? This one and this one. Now, these are missing something that they're supposed to have. They're supposed to be a little piece of metal that goes inside so that when this turns so many times around, it will go snap, pop. That little piece of metal goes pop, so you hear it. And that tells you you have 1 yard of yarn. Okay, that's what yard is a measurement, 1 yard of yarn. And this is a job for the children. So the
1
children
yard, like 3 feet length, or
3 feet length, yeah. So the children turn, and it goes pop. You take a piece of chalk, you mark it off on the stair side here, and now you have 1 yard. And the children keep turning it, and it goes pop, you mark 2. And when it's off, when you've wound all the yarn on, you know how many yards of yarn you have. Now, you hear the pop when it goes. You can't hear it on this one because the piece of metal's not there. But do you know what this is called? It's called a weasel. Have you ever heard the song, Pop Goes the Weasel? All around the cobbler's bench, the monkey chased the weasel. Monkey thought it was all in fun. Pop goes the weasel. And that song was sung by the children as they were doing this to make it more fun. So every time they go around and they would hear pop, they go, pop goes the weasel, and they'd sing the song. Because that's a job for children. Everybody helps dad and mom. Everybody has to help dad and mom. Okay? Has anybody not gotten in here to see? So we'll switch, or we'll just, okay? So now, good day to you, sir.
I neglected to bring a chair, so I had to sit down and
The
find my
room
flint.
is here. Now, Job Sammis weaves here in the house. He also goes out and weaves. Job is what they call, in addition to being the weaver here, he's called an itinerant weaver. That means he travels. So, let's say, sir, that you have a farm, and at your farm, you have been having your children and your wife spin yarn, and you have lots of yarn and lots of thread, and you need cloth. And you don't want to come to town to get the cloth. So you contact Job and you say, I have everything you need. Come to my farm and bring your loom and weave for me, and I will not only pay you, but I will give you a percentage of both the cloth you weave and the materials. And this is a good deal for Joe because now he doesn't have to go doing all of this by himself. This loom comes apart. All of these are pegs. All the pegs come out, all the pieces come down. The loom goes onto the carriage and the horse go off to your farm. He spends a couple of weeks with you, then he comes home. I'm guessing that Mrs. Sammis is glad that Job is out of her hair for about 2 weeks. How the loom works. Here are pedals down at the bottom. When you push one pedal down, one of these shafts comes up. You pass your shuttle from one end to the other, and then you beat that. You press the other pedal down, and the other yarn comes to the top. And you pass that back the other way. So what you're getting is like this. So what he's making now is like that. You can feel it. And if he makes his warp in just the right pattern with just the right number of shafts, he can get really fancy designs. And that's how a loom works. And if you come outside later, and I'm over at my tape room, I'll show you how it really happens. Would any of the adults like to see the photo? Yes? No? Okay. Let's move along. You saw Mr. Sammis's work area. Now we're going to see Mrs. Sammis's work area. This is Mrs. Sammis's kitchen, storage, separation area. And where she keeps all the things she needs for the house. So in here, we have these two sets of shelves, and she has the family dishes set up over here. She has her spices in these little cups over here. She has all kinds of things. She has her bucket for either cooking, washing dishes, or doing laundry in. She has lots of things over here. She has her water buckets. The children are the ones who go out for the water buckets. Now, that's not very heavy right now. But fill that with water, it's very heavy. And if you have more than one child, well, you get to share going to get the water. If you are an only child, you may be out there carrying those buckets. She has her pots over here. Do you know what this is? This is sugar. Oh, sugar. If you're going to buy white sugar, it's going to come in a cone. The cone is going to be wrapped in blue paper. The blue paper is almost as good as the sugar because if you take that blue paper and you boil it, you now have blue dye. And if you need a piece of sugar, you're going to have little nippers, like a pair of pliers with a blaze on the end. And you go onto the sugar and you nip a piece off. And you're going to either crush the sugar if you're baking with it, or let's say that you're going to put it in your tea. Well, then you would just use a little lump of sugar. Rolling pin and a dough bowl to make dough in. This, both pieces, that's your washing machine. Now, I just learned this past summer how this is used. You take a cloth and a bucket of water, and your clothes are soaking in another bucket over here. And in that bucket of water, you dip your cloth in, and you rub it on the soap. Soap is made of lye soap. You rub it on the cloth and get the cloth nice and soapy. And now you take the nice soapy cloth and the soap, and you rub it over this. And you get this really dripping and full of soap. Now you take your clothes, and you rub them against the soap. and scrub it on the soap. Now you take the big one, and you then take the clothes. You dip the clothes first in the bucket of rinse water and get the soap out. Take the clothes and put them on the other one and scrub them so they get dry. And then you hang them up to dry. And that's how you do your washing. You got to go out and hang up the clothes, so you've got your clothespins. This device behind me, today you'd call it a rotisserie. In the 18th century, it was called a Dutch oven. In the 19th century, it was called a reflecting oven. In the 18th century, this pot, this type of pot, with the indented top and the legs, today you'd call that a Dutch oven. In the 18th century, this is a bake kettle. This is your oven. If you need to bake something, you bring that over to the fire. You put it under the coals underneath. You put the coals on top. That's why it's indented in. And you take off the lid when it's good and hot, and you put whatever you want to bake in it. So you put something on the bottom so you're going to be able to get it out. So you put a dish in the bottom. You put perhaps dough to make a loaf of bread. These come in all sizes. And outside you're going to see a much bigger one that our camp cooker is using. These come in all sizes, so you could make a pie in it, you could make a cake in it, you could make biscuits in it, or you could make a whole bread loaf in it. At some point that becomes the Dutch oven. This becomes the reflecting oven. This has got a rod that goes through, and it has claws on it. You put your chicken in there, and you put this in front of the oven, in front of the fireplace, and one of the kids gets to turn the crank, and you're going to cook. You're going to have a rotisserie chicken, or a piece of beef, or a duck, or whatever else you're cooking. We're going to look in and then come out from the other room because nobody is all going to fit. So line in, then come out, and then we'll let everybody get in and look. That's where my mom and papa sleep.
Oh look, there's an iron.
There's an iron. That is an iron. I guess an Amish woman once. How come the iron doesn't dirty the clothes more?
It's good to be the king.
And she told me that after you get that iron hot in the fire, well, you just wipe off the bottom, and that's why it doesn't get anything dirty. Now the bed. The bed in that room is a rope bed. Underneath the mattresses, there are 2 mattresses on that bed. Underneath the mattresses, there are ropes, like this one has. There are the ropes, just like this one inside there. If the bed starts to sag, well, you just tighten those ropes. And there's something called a bed jack. It's just like a big clothespin with a handle on the top. And you put that on the side in between the ropes, and you twist and you tighten. You get the end of the rope where it's tied off, and take away the slack and tie it up tight again, and the bed is nice and bouncy. On top of the ropes goes a piece of leather, so that you don't sink into the ropes. On top of the piece of leather goes a straw mattress, a straw mattress, and on top of the straw mattress goes a feather mattress. And then you saw Mr. Sammis has a coverlet that he's weaving. In the 18th century, while we are under British rule, what you can do in your trade is restricted by British law. In the colonies, not in England, but in the colonies, because England does not want you competing with them in any way. They want you to take what you grow here, send it to England, they'll make it into nice things, and sell it back to you at a higher price. He is not allowed to make fine cloth. if you were going to go to the mercantile store, the millinery store, or the general store, and you're going to speak to the shopkeeper, and you're going to say, I want clothes for a shirt, cloth for a shirt, and he's going to sell you the finest cloth he has from London at a good price. He can't make it for you. Not allowed. He's also not allowed to make anything wider than what you see. That doesn't make much of a bedspread. Now, you could sew the two pieces together, and that's what he has to do. But that's the length he's limited to. What he is primarily making is bed coverlets and rough cloth. Rough cloth for siege sacks, storage bags, burlap sacks, anything that would use rough cloth. And he's making rough cloth for slave clothing.
Was he capable of making?
Oh, yeah.
Probably was.
Oh, he knows how to do it. He's just not allowed. This is going on until, here's the big history lesson, until the end of 1774. At the end of the First Continental Congress, the people in New England, those Massachusetts troublemakers, as most of the colonies refer to them, the Massachusetts malcontents, because they were always getting into trouble, they proposed an association of the colonies. And they were going to write down rules of the association, which the Congress, primarily focused by those in New England, did. And the first thing they were going to do when the Congress ended was send this association out to all of the colonies. Everybody was going to swear allegiance to the association, and everybody was going to follow the rules. And the first rule says we will no longer import British goods. What they were going to do, which makes a lot of sense, is that if you have merchants that have been relying on you in England to buy from them, the first thing you do is you cut those merchants off. So what they decided was, you are not to import from them. You're not to do business with Great Britain any longer. Then, of course, up in New England, they were very sensitive about the tea. So in the association, it says 3 different steps. The first step was that the tea after this date will no longer be sold in any shop. And then, after that, the tea on this date was no longer to be used outside of your house. And then, on this date, sorry, there is no more tea. If you drink tea, you break the association. Now, we are not importing anymore. So where are we going to get our nice clothing from? These guys are thrilled. They are now in business. They can weave anything they want. And he can weave cloth for clothes. He can weave cloth for nice gowns. You are not getting it from England anymore. People are not all thrilled that have to buy it, because what you have here is what you can weave with. And you've got linen and you've got wool. You do not have cotton. If you wanted cotton, you could have gotten it before when we could trade with Great Britain, because cotton comes from India. In the colonies, there is no cotton grown. Not until Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin. Cotton is too labor intensive. Even if you have slaves, you cannot grow cotton and worthwhile use that cotton financially. It just doesn't make any business sense. So you don't have cotton. So you've got linen and wool. Wool is scratchy. Linen's kind of nice, but it gets cold in the winter if you're just in the winter. And a popular cloth of the day was called linsey woolsey. And you can still buy linsey woolsey. It's linen in the warp and wool in the weft. Weft is what goes across. Linen is what goes up and down. And so it's a blend. And it's very scratchy. Very scratchy. People are not happy that they can't buy from England, but this is how it is. Lots of things go on in the association. We are not to have any fun anymore. Puritans wrote this. Okay? Popular thing of the day is to go to the local tavern, and the tavern keeper will set up a night for you to bring your wife or your girlfriend. It's not proper for ladies to go to a tavern, but there's a night that they can go, and he's going to hold a subscription ball. Nice big dance. So you bring the family, you bring the girls, and you bring your wife, you bring your girlfriend, and you can dance. And it's a ball, just like the governor has in his castle, in the governor's palace in New York, on Governor's Island. He has wonderful balls, and the gentry people were very rich. They have wonderful balls in their house. So now you could go to a ball. No more balls. We don't dance. This is not time to be having fun. You like to play cards. You like to gamble. You like to have horse races. No more gambling. It's in the association. Do you like to go to the theater? Theater companies would come around to the towns. They'd set up a stage, maybe on the green. They'd charge admission. You come, you sit on the ground, you bring a stool and or a bench, and you watch the play. Some of the finest plays in England were coming. Theater companies read the association. They all went to the islands. The association says, no more theatrical productions, no more plays. We are now living under the thumb of the association. What happens if I break the association? I decide I'm having the guys in for a card game. I decide I'm a tavern keeper. Gentlemen, if you'd like to go in the back room and play cards, go right ahead. Somebody sees this. Somebody goes to the Committee of Safety. The Committee of Safety, usually headed by the militia. The Committee of Safety is the one that keeps the peace. If you had trouble in your home, or there was burglars, you call the Committee of Safety. There's no police force, really. Call the Committee of Safety, and they go out and find the guy or whatever. So now the Committee of Safety has taken on enforcing the association. I saw him gambling at the tavern, and the tavern keeper allowed it. Tavern keeper and you are to appear before the Committee of Safety. We have a hearing. We could say we have a trial, but there is nothing legally binding any of this. We are still a British colony. It is still 1774 to 1775. We haven't separated at all. The governor doesn't care if you have balls or dances or whatever else, but the Committee of Safety cares. I find you guilty as charged. Would you pay a fine? That's the easy way to get off. You pay a fine to the committee. I find you guilty, and we are going to declare you, sir, an enemy of American liberties, and shall publish such in the local gazetteer. And the local gazetteer basically goes all over Long Island and New York and into the Westchesters. It's Rivington's gazetteer. And now everybody knows that Mr. Smith is an enemy of American liberty. Mr. Smith of Huntington is an enemy of American liberty. What does that mean? If I do business with you, I'm going to be in trouble. If I help you in any way, I'm going to be in trouble. You're kind of up the creek, you know. So what do? Basically, you pack up and move somewhere with your family to where they don't know you. Is this good? No. Is this liberty? Mm-mm. Closest you could think of this is like McCarthyism. Basically, the kids wouldn't know, and I hope everybody else knows that in the 1950s, your neighbor came and said you're a communist and turned you into the committee, and whether you are or not, you're defending yourself up there. And it also happens now. I don't like you. You let your sheep into my yard, and they ate all of my wife's flowers. They go to the committee. They have tea in their house. And I saw them gambling. This guy gambles all the time. You drag in front of the committee. It's my word against yours, but they might take mine, because mine is for liberty. That's what it is. And this is how you're living from 75 until 76.
So was it a rule against letting your sheep onto somebody else's land to eat their crops?
It's an accident. What are you going to do about it?
You're responsible for building a fence to keep your livestock in.
You might have a fence, but animals find ways to get through.
You need to build a better fence. You're a human, they're an animal.
The sheep may never have even gone through. I just don't like them. Okay? That's the point of all of this. It's an accusation versus accusation. It goes all the way down to how you're allowed to run your funerals. No more fancy clothes, black armband, that's it. No more, it was common to give gifts at a funeral. You would give something to remember the person who passed away. Maybe a locket with a bit of their hair or a ring with a bit of their hair. It was common to give gloves, very nice gloves. No more, none of that. So now we live this way until, and we run back to the house, 1776, Declaration of Independence says, come to the green in July. There'll be a schedule outside. We're having Huntington Independence Day. I think it's the 19th of July. It's a Sunday. Huntington Independence Day, the Declaration of Independence comes to Huntington. It gets read on the village green, which we will do. The townspeople go wild. The townspeople are crazy. They're great. Wonderful. Let's riot. And they do. They get the flag. Town of Huntington flag is red. It says Liberty on the bottom. It says George III on the top. Rip those letters, George III, down. We make the Liberty flag. We got a Liberty flag now. We make the Liberty flag.
I'm surprised that George had his name on the Liberty flag.
George III gives you liberty, sir. You're a loyal and British subject, and the British people have liberty. Can't deny that the British have liberty. They have it today. They had it then. You are a British subject. You are a loyal British subject. As a colonist, you are still a loyal British subject, and you've got the Liberty flag. But up here, those letters also say George III on both sides. So they rip the letters off. They stuff them in what's called an effigy. An effigy is a big doll. That's all it is. It's a big doll. And they hang the big doll up on a liberty pole. A liberty pole is something that most towns would put up with a keg of tar and a bag of feathers hanging from the top. And it would let everybody know that if you weren't going to be following the cause and be for liberty, you would get tarred and feathered. So they put them up on the top of the liberty pole, and they stuff them full of gunpowder, and they blow the doll up. Boom! We do that on the green. Come and see us on Huntington Independence Day.
You actually have gunpowder and blow things up.
Yeah. Now it's July, and we go off into August. And what happens in 1776 in August? The British move from Massachusetts and they move to New York. And the British, and they say that the harbor of New York has so many British ships. Not that many British ships were never seen in one place since the Spanish Armada. And there are all these British men-of-war ships. Men-of-war ship is the strongest ship the British have. And there they are with the ships. And we know what they're going to do. They're coming offshore, and they're going to take us. Because that's what they did in Massachusetts. So everybody sends, the militias all go out. And the militias go to Battle of Brooklyn. And they lose. Big time. And what happens? We become under British occupation. Long Island, New York City, and Westchester and Staten Island is under British occupation for the entire Revolution. Now, Long Island includes Brooklyn, Queens. You're standing in Suffolk, but if you go to the next county over, you're in Queens in 1775. There is no Nassau. And we're under British occupation. So now, we've got British soldiers. And where are the British soldiers going to like to be? out on that green. Huntington is the center of British occupation for New York. Who comes into all of the houses around? The officers. This is a occupied village. This is an occupied town.